So today we're going to be talking about why we here at Melbourne Strength Culture believe the SSB bar is the best accessory or specialty barbell that you can utilize in your training to ultimately progress your powerlifting total, being the squat, bench, and deadlift numbers. We do believe that the SSB bar has the potential to help all three lifts improve, and we'll get into that later, even the bench press. So this here is an SSB bar. It's pretty much just a barbell with handles where you can put your head through and the bar rests on your back. So the first great benefit of the SSB bar is this camber that is off to the sides of the bar where you actually load the plates onto the sleeve. The great thing about this camber is that when you actually load yourself into the SSB bar and you move your arms up to hold your upper back tension and tightness, it actually swings the load to an anterior load. So it's similar to that of a front squat, in fact. This anterior load is fantastic, particularly through an SSB bar, because it doesn't require the excess mobility that is needed to hold a barbell in the front rack position and to load a barbell in the front rack position. So it's a very great way for you to get an anterior loaded squat in your training program without the excessive mobility needed for the front squat. So the second great thing about an SSB bar in relation to the front squat and loading the front squat is eventually your legs are not the limiting factor in a front squat, and quite often not even your core position. It is simply just your upper back tension and tightness in the front squat is what's going to limit your ability to progress the weights further. The great thing with an SSB bar is, again, because of the anterior load, we can actually load the body in a very similar way to that of a front squat. However, now that the bar is on your back, that upper back tension and tightness is no longer going to be such a restricting issue for your progression in that movement. So now we can load the core and the legs a lot heavier because we can put more weight on the bar simply because the bar sits on your back, but it still loads the body in an anterior load. The third great thing about the SSB bar is because of the hand position, it really forces you to maintain a lot of mid-back tension. With a typical barbell position, we can actually use the barbell for stability of the upper body. We can pull down on the bar and we can create tension with the upper body on the barbell itself. However, with an SSB bar, that's not as simple because the handlebars are in front. If you go to pull down on the handlebars, you'll end up just forcing yourself into some flexion up top and you'll drive some kyphotic posture, which will ultimately limit the amount of weight you can lift. So the SSB bar is a really great way for you to improve your upper back and your mid-back tension and tightness, and also the endurance of the upper and mid-back as the sets and reps progress through your programs. Finally, the fourth great reason why we believe the SSB bar is the ultimate accessory barbell or specialty barbell for your powerlifting program is because it limits the amount of stress that is putting on the shoulders, the elbows, and the wrists of the upper body. So these three joints can often take a beating with aggressive low bar strategies and a lot of bench pressing, depending on your technique. So the SSB bar is a really great way for you to deload the shoulders, elbows, and wrists without having to take lower body volume off your program. So you can still perform a number of sets and reps and really get a lot of volume through your lower body lifts. However, you're not going to be stressing the shoulders, the elbows, and the wrist the same way that you would be if you were doing a low bar or a high bar variation. So this means that we can ultimately maintain the health of the upper body joints, which ultimately means we can drive more volume with your upper body bench program, which ultimately leaves your bench will actually improve. So the SSB bar will actually improve your bench press numbers. So now that we've talked about why we believe the SSB bar is the best specialty barbell for your powerlifting total, it is important now for us to talk about two of our favorite exercises or accessory exercises for both the deadlift and the squat, and how you can program these into your program for ultimately improving your total. The best squatting accessory or competition squat accessory that we can do with an SSB bar, we believe, is just purely SSB squats. The SSB bar, as we've talked about already, loads the bar anteriorly to the body, which means we're a lot more upright with our torso angle, and it means our knees are going to be driven a lot further forward in an effort to maintain the upright torso. What this allows us to do is it allows us to hold our position over our quads, which means we can actually strengthen the quads a lot more. We can build muscle and volume through the quads. The quads are going to be one of the biggest prime movers of the squat, so any volume, additional volume that we can load on those quads will be a great thing for improving a squat. The second great thing with the SSB squat, as we've talked about already, is the anterior load challenges the torso, the muscles of the torso a lot more, being the core, the mid, and the upper back. So these three muscle groups are obviously going to be very important for stability and force transference through your squat. So any way that we can challenge those with some accessory movements and strengthen those muscles in particular, or those groups of muscles, we can actually improve the squat. So SSB squats, because of the anterior load, is going to do that. The best accessory movement that we believe you can do for your deadlift with an SSB bar is SSB box squats. And that's what we're going to take you through right now. So I'm going to set the camera up. I'm going to show you how to set this up to improve your deadlift performance. For the SSB box squat utilized as a deadlift accessory, we're going to set up the box just below where your hip position would be if you're about to initiate your pull on the deadlift for a conventional deadlift. So for me, that is about here. It's just slightly higher than parallel if we're talking squat depth. However, it's just below the point on which my hip position starts when I'm about to initiate my deadlift pull. What this allows us to do is it allows us to get starting strength or force development through the actual initial parts of your deadlift, and we can actually break the floor a lot harder by utilizing the quads and the squatting muscles that we're using here with this accessory. The second key thing you have to take into consideration is your feet width. Here we recommend having a slightly closer stance to replicate and be more specific to your deadlift setup rather than your squat. So for me, my feet are going to be just slightly inside my typical squatting stance. So the final thing is actually the execution of the SSB squat, box squat, sorry. So when you move through this movement, we're going to have about a 50 to 60% deload onto the box, maintain your tension, and then push hard and really break that inertia in order to get some speed into the bottom of your deadlift. So as always, thank you very much for following along today. We hope to have helped you with your understanding of your SSB bar and how to better program it to improve your powerlifting numbers. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. You can find us through the links in the description box. As always, happy lifting and welcome to the culture.